Give this man his flowers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel again. Thank y'all so much for coming over. At age 68, Robert Townsend confirms the rumors. Now, if you guys don't know who Robert Townsend is, come on, man. This brother right here, hilarious. One of the OGs for sure. Remember I talked about how there's a lot of actors who you don't really see a lot of. You don't really see their face, but you remember them, but you don't see them. They kind of like disappear. You know, they don't get like these big, humongous roles. This is one of the guys who you would think that you would see on TV a lot. A lot. For those of you who know, y'all know. Excuse me. So, excuse me. I'm excited to check this out. But like I said, woo, get this man his flowers. We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
That's what we were going through. We had, casting directors telling us, no, a black man should do this. No, look at me, homeboy. Shanda Kwanda Nikwa, I want my money. Say, I want my money.
They wanted him to be their dancing monkey. When he refused to play the game, Hollywood unleashed something that would follow him for decades.
That was key right there. I'm trying not to pause this video a lot, but when you hear them say refuse to play their game, yeah. There's famous, and then there's whatever else it is. When you just can't stop seeing a person's face. Here we go.
Stereotyping, I've auditioned for I knew I was never going to win an Oscar for playing I really feel that last movie. Thank you, Academy.
For years, Robert Townsend was Hollywood's secret, a brilliant filmmaker whose name was deliberately kept out of mainstream conversations. While Jordan Peele, Ryan Coogler, and Issa Rae get celebrated as pioneers, few remember the man who opened those doors first.
Bill Cosby hired Robert Townsend to shoot Bill Cosby was set to do a TV show on Netflix.
I remember that.
He reached out to Bill Cosby, I want you to do it.
Right.
Nobody was Robert Townsend to shoot nothing.
At 68, Robert Townsend finally breaks his silence about what really happened behind the scenes. The blacklisting, the erasure, the price he paid for refusing to stay in line. This is the story Hollywood never wanted you to hear. In 1984, a young Robert Townsend had just come off a powerful performance in A Soldier's Story alongside Denzel Washington. For the first time in his career, he felt like he might actually make it in Hollywood. The casting director, a middle-aged white woman with perfectly styled hair, looked him up and down with the clinical efficiency of someone evaluating livestock. "You're here for the 8-ball role," she said, not looking up from her clipboard. Townsend glanced at the character description. Street-smart pimp with gold teeth. Talks jive. Intimidating but ultimately harmless comic relief. His stomach dropped. After months of Shakespeare classes and years perfecting his craft at Second City, this was what they saw when they looked at him.
And so we were going through it, and rather than go crazy, we said, the Black Acting School was a part of my stand-up when I was, starting out at the Improv. I used to do a whole routine about, going to these auditions. And then Keenan came up with the idea and said, we should do a full-out sketch.
That wasn't an isolated incident. It was the routine. Week after week, Townsend would show up to casting calls for characters named Midnight, Licorice, Boot, or Razor. The roles were always the same. Gang members, slaves, or comic sidekicks, whose only purpose was to make white characters look smarter. Townsend had spent years honing his craft. He could recite Hamlet's soliloquy flawlessly. He'd studied method acting with the best teachers in New York. He'd performed improv comedy that brought audiences to their feet. None of that mattered when Hollywood looked at his skin color and saw only stereotypes.
When you love what
you think about this brother's resume, his capabilities, and then what they were presenting to him. You know, you go back and you think of you know, how Denzel didn't get what was it, an Oscar or something until he had that role in Training Day, which was very controversial. A lot of people were like, in his church was like, they don't think he should do this because this is something, even though it's just acting. But I mean, you think about all the great movies he's had before that, never won. Yeah, it this really sucks because, you know, I remember watching him when I was young. I forget the movie, but Robert Townsend had some really, really like good important roles. But like they say, if you want to get to the advanced roles, you need to do these things, and it just looked like he said no.
Do you just want to? I had a pure heart, as an actor. I just want to do everything, and I didn't know that they would put me in a box, and that's and Hollywood Shuffle was about breaking out of that box.
The breaking point came after A Soldier Story earned 3 Oscar nominations in 1985. Townsend thought this would finally open doors to substantial roles. He met with his agent, excited about the possibilities. He wanted to do more projects like Soldier's Story. According to him, these were films with real characters and real stories. His agent looked at him like he'd asked to direct the next Star Wars movie. She said they only do 1 black movie a year, and they had just done it.
Damn.
1 black movie a year. That was Hollywood's unspoken quota in the 1980s. 1 film with predominantly black characters. 1 chance for black actors to play something other than criminals or servants. And if you were lucky enough to be in that 1 film, you were supposed to be grateful, stay quiet, and wait for next year's opportunity. But Townsend couldn't stay quiet. Late at night, he started writing down every humiliating audition experience. Every time a director asked him to talk more urban, every character name that sounded like it came from a minstrel show. Every moment when his humanity was reduced to a racial caricature. The material was so outrageous, it became comedy gold. Working with his friend Keenan Ivory Wayans, Townsend began turning his pain into satirical sketches. They called it Black Acting School, a fictional academy where black actors learned to degrade themselves for white audiences. The sketches evolved into something bigger, a full-length film that would expose Hollywood's racist casting practices with surgical precision. They would call it Hollywood Shuffle, and it would change everything. There was just one problem. No studio would finance a movie that criticized the very system they profited from. If Townsend wanted to tell this story, he'd have to fund it himself, a decision that seemed financial but felt like artistic survival. Hollywood Shuffle premiered on March 20th, 1987, and immediately sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. This wasn't subtle commentary. This was a direct assault on Hollywood's racist infrastructure.
Oh yeah, this is the audition stuff.
Yeah.
This is like a lot of my friends are really trained, and this is what they go through.
Do we have this audition clip? We can put it up, and it'll explain what we're talking about.
The film's Black Acting School segment became instantly iconic. It showed black actors being taught to shuffle, jive talk, and degrade themselves for white audiences. The instructor's advice was horrifyingly real. Remember, you're not a person, you're a type. Critics were stunned. Roger Ebert called it a logistical triumph that announced the arrival of a new talent. Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up. The New York Times, LA Times, and Washington Post all praised Townsend's fearless satire. But something strange happened in the weeks following the film's release. Despite positive reviews and decent box office performance, Townsend noticed a shift in how Hollywood treated him. Meetings became harder to schedule. Projects he'd been considered for suddenly went to other actors. The Whisper campaign had begun.
I used my own money. I used money. I had worked on different movies. I was in A Soldier Story, Streets of Fire. I did TV commercials. I was the Midas Muffler Man. I sold chicken McNuggets.
Yeah.
And then eventually I ran out of all my money and I started using credit cards.
While other filmmakers were getting studio deals after successful debuts, Townsend found himself financing his own projects. The message was clear. Hollywood would tolerate his success, but they wouldn't fund his rebellion. The film's impact extended far beyond entertainment. Hollywood Shuffle became required viewing in film schools and media literacy courses. It inspired a generation of black filmmakers to create their own content rather than wait for permission. But for Townsend personally, the cost was immense. He'd spent his life savings exposing an industry that now viewed him as a threat. The very system he'd criticized was quietly working to ensure he'd never have that platform again. Eddie Murphy, at the height of his fame, asked Townsend to direct his 1987 concert film, Raw. It should have been a career-making opportunity. Instead, it became another example of how Hollywood would use Townsend's talent while limiting his opportunities to tell his own stories. Raw became the highest-grossing stand-up comedy film of all time.
Man.
Townsend's direction was flawless, but rather than leading to bigger opportunities, it reinforced his position as someone who could execute other people's visions, but couldn't be trusted with major resources for his own projects. The trap was perfectly designed. Acknowledge his talent just enough to avoid accusations of racism, but never give him the power to create another Hollywood Shuffle. After the success of Hollywood Shuffle and Raw, Townsend should have been Hollywood's golden boy. Instead, he spent 4 years fighting to get his next project made. The 5 Heartbeats would become his masterpiece and his most difficult battle. The film was inspired by real Motown groups like the Temptations and the Dells. Townsend had traveled with the Dells, hearing their stories of exploitation, racism, and industry manipulation. He wanted to create something authentic, a celebration of black musical culture that didn't shy away from the harsh realities these artists faced.
Still will forever be grateful to Robert Townsend. Will I work with him again or not? It doesn't matter in the sense of my gratitude towards him, because he fought for me. He allowed me to do my job.
Studios were interested in the project, but only with significant changes. They wanted to remove the scenes dealing with racism. They wanted to eliminate the church sequences. They wanted to sanitize the story until it became another feel-good musical without substance. Townsend refused every compromise. He'd already proven that audiences hungry for authentic black stories would support them financially, but Hollywood wasn't interested in authentic black stories. They were interested in black stories that made white audiences comfortable. The project bounced between studios for years. Warner Brothers, who had signed Townsend to a deal after Hollywood Shuffle, eventually passed. The message was clear: make the movie they wanted, or don't make it at all.
Yep.
Finally, 20th Century Fox agreed to finance the film, but with a reduced budget and limited marketing support. The studio executives who...
And I think that movie didn't, I don't know if they won an award or not. That movie was so good. So good. The 5 Heartbeats. Man, I just like, again, when I think of people like Robert Townsend, man, I think of him and like Keenan Ivory Wayans, all of them together. Keenan Ivory Wayans is so behind the scenes, man, and he's built such an empire, so he's able to do kind of what he wants. I feel like Robert Townsend was on his way to being on that same level, but that Hollywood Shuffle was a gift and a curse.
greenlit the project made it clear they expected it to appeal primarily to black audiences. They weren't planning a wide release. When The 5 Heartbeats premiered on March 29, 1991, it was a revelation. The film captured the joy, pain, and complexity of black musical culture in ways mainstream cinema had never attempted. The performances were extraordinary. The music was transcendent. The story honored its real-life inspirations while creating something entirely original. Critics were divided. Some praised Townsend's ambition and heart. Others dismissed it as sentimental or unfocused. But audiences, particularly black audiences, embraced the film with a passion that surprised everyone. The 5 Heartbeats didn't just entertain, it validated experiences that had been ignored by mainstream cinema. For the first time, many viewers saw their own family histories reflected on screen, the struggles, the triumphs, the complexity of Black life in America. Yet despite its cultural impact, the film was barely promoted by the studio. It received limited theatrical release and quickly disappeared from mainstream consciousness. Only through home video and cable television did it find its true audience. The pattern was becoming clear. Townsend could create culturally significant work, but the industry would ensure.
And he said 91, so I was 11. Hollywood Shuffle, I was 7. So as you're younger, as a child, as a kid, as a teen, you're not really looking at the numbers like that. You're just focused on, you know, was the movie good? How did it make you feel? Stuff like that. But as you get older, you kind of see how everything worked behind the scenes. You're like, damn, this movie wasn't this and this. It's almost like, you know, when movies get like a low rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and then you go see it and you're like, damn, this movie's actually good. Then a movie that get a high rating, you're like, the movie, you know. So that's why I said, as you get older and start to understand life more, and you look at movies and you find out like, damn, this movie kind of relates to my life a lot more than I knew, but it really didn't get the recognition that you thought it should, man. That's what I'm talking about. It's the same thing with him.
It remained marginalized. By the mid-1990s, Robert Townsend had created 2 classics, directed the highest-grossing stand-up film in history, and inspired countless filmmakers.
Yes.
Yet his name was rarely mentioned alongside other influential directors of his generation. The erasure was subtle but systematic. Film retrospectives would discuss the rise of independent Black cinema without mentioning Hollywood Shuffle. Lists of influential filmmakers would skip over Townsend's contributions. Even when his work was referenced, it was often diminished or dismissed.
And, you know, I'm like, why isn't Robert defending his brother?
Speaking up for him.
I mean, Robert, did you think, oh, no. I was like, are you telling me you? He said, I don't know. Which you mean? Okay, you think he did it? Or you know? No, I don't think he did it, but I can't say anything. Why? He's the only motherfucker that hired you.
The Bill Cosby controversy revealed another layer of Townsend's impossible position in Hollywood. When allegations surfaced against Cosby, Townsend found himself caught between loyalty to someone who had supported his career and pressure to publicly condemn him. His measured response satisfied no one. Critics accused him of protecting a P-dotter. Industry insiders noted his reluctance to completely cut ties with powerful figures. The episode demonstrated how precarious his position remained. One wrong statement could end what was left of his mainstream opportunities. The 2000s brought new challenges. Townsend continued working, directing television movies and smaller projects. He created The Parent Hood, a successful sitcom that ran for 5 seasons on the WB. But these successes were rarely acknowledged in discussions of Black television excellence. When The Parent Hood ended in 1999, Townsend faced a harsh reality. He was being written out of his own story. The filmmakers he'd inspired were getting the recognition he'd been denied. The doors he'd opened were credited to others. The final insult came with the rise of streaming platforms. Services like Netflix were spending millions on content from Black creators, but Townsend's foundational work remained largely invisible. His films weren't featured prominently. His story wasn't being told. The algorithm-driven nature of modern media consumption made his erasure complete. Without active promotion, his work simply disappeared from cultural conversation. New generations of viewers discovered Black Panther and Get Out without ever learning about the Meteor Man or Hollywood Shuffle. Industry events would celebrate diversity and inclusion while ignoring the man who'd been fighting those battles for decades. Awards shows would honor Black excellence while overlooking the pioneer who'd made much of it possible. The message was clear. You can be influential, but only if we decide to remember you. In 2018, something unexpected happened. A new generation of filmmakers and critics began rediscovering Robert Townsend's work. Social media posts praising The 5 Heartbeats went viral. film students shared clips from Hollywood Shuffle with amazement at its relevance. The Criterion Collection announced they were releasing a restored 4K version of Hollywood Shuffle, validation that had been decades in the making. Suddenly,
Overdue.
Townsend's pioneering work was being reassessed and celebrated.
I'm thrilled, man. And 30-some years later, that movie is
30 years.
The timing wasn't coincidental. As Hollywood faced renewed pressure to address systemic racism, Townsend's early critiques seemed prophetic. His films hadn't just been ahead of their time, they'd been actively suppressed because they were too truthful. Jordan Peele, Ryan Coogler, and Issa Rae began acknowledging Townsend's influence in interviews. Film schools started teaching Hollywood Shuffle alongside She's Gotta Have It as essential black cinema. The narrative was slowly being corrected. At 68, Townsend finally received the recognition he'd been denied for decades.
Damn.
He was honored with Lifetime Achievement Awards. Film festivals held retrospectives of his work. Critics wrote articles about his overlooked contributions to American cinema. But perhaps most importantly, he never stopped creating. His documentary, Making the Five Heartbeats, provided behind-the-scenes insight into his struggles to get the film made. He continued mentoring young filmmakers through his foundation and teaching at USC. The man they'd tried to erase had survived through sheer persistence and talent. His influence could be seen in every black filmmaker who chose to tell their own stories rather than wait for permission. His spirit lived in every project that chose authenticity over acceptability. Robert Townsend's greatest victory wasn't any single film or award. It was proving that integrity could outlast even the most systematic erasure. He'd been silenced, marginalized, and forgotten, but he'd never stopped working. Now, as a new generation discovers his work, the full scope of his impact is finally being understood. He didn't just make movies, he created possibilities. He didn't just break barriers, he built bridges for others to cross. The rumors are true. Robert Townsend was deliberately kept out of the conversation about influential black filmmakers. But the truth has a way of surfacing eventually. And the truth is that Hollywood tried to erase one of its most important voices, and failed. Today, when young filmmakers pick up cameras to tell their own stories, they're walking a path that Robert Townsend carved with credit cards, determination, and an unshakable belief that black stories matter. They tried to silence him. They tried to erase him. They tried to make him disappear. They failed. His legacy isn't just in the films he made. It's in every black filmmaker who refuses to stay in their assigned box. It's in every artist who chooses authenticity over acceptance. It's in every story that gets told despite the system trying to prevent it. At 68, Robert Townsend has confirmed what many suspected. He was blacklisted, marginalized, and deliberately erased from film history. But he's also confirmed something else, that truth, talent, and persistence can overcome even the most systematic oppression. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks.
Shout out to him, man. What a great video. And I see that's what I'm saying as far as the next generation has to pay homage and give credit to the ones that came before them. You know, I was talking to someone at the gym and I was like, they be talking about that dance all the youngsters are doing, that you know, a lot of people in New York, Kai Cenat, that Silky, the streamers, they made popular the getting sturdy, but they showed like it was in the 1950s. It was this woman doing the same dance, but like people don't do the research, you know, they don't do a deep dive, and they think that some of these newer cats are the ones making you know, or creating these things when it's been people way before them. That's why I say you gotta, I see so many things, whether it's clothing, hairstyles, whatever the case may be, that has been done. It's just history repeating itself, but it's our job to keep those legacies alive. You have to pay respect and give homage, man, because if not, the creators will be lost. Like I said, Robert Townsend is one of those dudes who, I mean, you seen all this stuff that he was doing, man. You know, and all it took was for somebody to pay homage, and then people start to be like, wait, oh, this movie, he did that? Like, what? Oh, you know, then you end up seeing all his work, man, and they get the recognition. Damn. Appreciate y'all coming over and watching, man. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. What a way to show some respect to this brother, man. All right, peace out.